So a lot of people have been asking me, what's the deal with this National Association of Realtors class action lawsuit settlement? People are so confused because they've been hearing about this in the media, and since March 15th, the media has been getting it absolutely wrong and speculating about things that have nothing to do with this, and just basically adding confusion into the marketplace the way only the national media can do. Essentially, what this lawsuit deals with are offers of compensation from a seller's broker to a buyer's broker on the MLS. The MLS is a place where all listings are entered. It's a data entry portal, and then that information is transmitted out to all the other consumer real estate websites in the world. Realtors subscribe to an MLS so they can see the showing instructions, private remarks, and the offer of compensation from the seller to the buyer's agent. But that will no longer be in there. So how will that be communicated? This is the basic change for sellers in this whole process, is how that offer of compensation is going to be communicated to the buyer's agent. It will be allowed to be communicated anywhere else but the MLS. Social media, YouTube, print advertising, company websites like the Compass website, where all of our clients love to search. All of these places will be allowed to advertise from the seller's side the compensation that they're offering to the buyer's agent. It just won't be able to be published right in the MLS the way it is now. So that's the biggest change, how this offer of compensation is communicated. The huge misconception that the media seems to have created is that the National Association of Realtors, NAR, is how I'll refer to it going forward, that NAR has somehow controlled the amount of commission in the past. This is not true. Real estate commissions have always been negotiable. When I sit down and I take a listing with a seller, we decide right then and there how much I'm getting paid and how much they're offering to the buyer's agent. And that is not going to change. So it's merely where the compensation can be communicated that's changing. So the seller has always been able to choose how much to offer, including 0%. Now, is it wise for a seller to offer 0% buyer's agent compensation? Absolutely not. As a fiduciary to a seller, I will always recommend to the seller they present their property in the best possible condition, in the best possible light. Marketing is all about positioning a product in a place where a consumer will see it and be attracted to it. And one of the ways you attract a consumer to a property is by incentivizing the consumer's agent to bring them in and to represent them through the process. So another thing that I've seen in the media is that this settlement is going to cause home prices to come down. And that just isn't true. I really don't see how in the world that is going to happen. If you take 4 or 5% commission out of the equation, then yes, that's less money, but who's going to represent the buyers and sellers? It's been proven again and again that sellers who are represented by a realtor on average sell their home for at least 5% more, if not 10% more than it will sell for if they have no representation. Experience is what you pay for as a seller. You're not paying necessarily for your agent to list your property. You are paying them to list your property, but what you're really paying for is the experience up until you met your agent. The same way when you pay a plumber or an electrician or a dentist or a doctor, you're paying for their experience, their education, and their expertise. Because most people might sell 1 or 2 or 3 properties in a lifetime, whereas I've been involved with hundreds and hundreds of home sales and have seen tons of iterations of how things can go. And so when things start to get weird in a real estate transaction, it's my experience and my ability to communicate and negotiate that keeps things on track and gets the seller and the buyer to the closing. And offering the property in its best possible light will always yield the highest net proceed. And that's what really matters when you're a seller, right? Your net proceed, what you're putting in your pocket at the end of the transaction. What you're paying your agent may seem like a lot. However, being in business is extraordinarily expensive. So you're paying your agent what seems like a ton of money, both agents. However, those agents are also spending a ton of money to be in business. So it's just part of the business cycle. It's a professional fee, if you think of it that way. So anyway, that's what's going on with seller compensation and what the seller is offering to the buyer's agent and why they should offer that to the buyer's agent. A seller wants the buyer's agent to bring their best to the property to ensure that the buyer moves along the contract timeline in a timely fashion as it's spelled out in the contract, and that the buyer's agent is there to support the buyer throughout the process from contract to close. That will yield the most smoothest possible transaction with the highest possible net proceeds. So what does it mean for buyers? It means that going forward, all buyers are going to be required to sign a buyer-broker agreement. And that is not just coming from us, it's not just coming from Compass, it's nationwide. All realtors, before showing property to a buyer, will be required to enter into a buyer-broker agreement. And a buyer-broker agreement spells out the agent's responsibilities, the buyer's responsibilities, rights, and duties, and how much their agent is going to be compensated. Now, what happens if the seller is offering nothing? This isn't new, really. There are for sale by owners out there. There are always going to be people in the marketplace who don't want to pay the professional fee. They think they can do better on their own. They don't like realtors, whatever the case may be. They don't want to pay. So if you become interested as a buyer in a property that isn't paying a fee, it's up to me to talk to that seller and say, this buyer is represented by an agent, and if you want this buyer to purchase your property, you're going to have to negotiate a fee for me, their agent, in order to bring the buyer through the process. And if the seller is still refusing, then that fee is going to have to be paid by the buyer. However, these cases currently are very rare, and I believe going forward these cases are going to be very, very rare. I do not believe that there is going to be much of a change in the marketplace in terms of sellers offering compensation to buyers' agents. Great agents, great listing agents know how to explain this to a seller, and the listing agreement in California is not going to change. So these questions are going to be answered at the time the listing is taken. So a vast majority of properties on the market are still going to be offering compensation the way they are now. It's just a difference in the way that number is communicated to the buyer's agent. So, why does a buyer's agent get paid in the first place? Don't they just open the door and let people in? No, again, it's experience, it's local expertise, it's negotiating skills, it's problem-solving skills, it's the ability to evaluate a property for a buyer in an accurate way so that they know what they're getting into when they sign the contract. And then it's the buyer's agent's network of people that they've built up over many, many years. Home inspectors, plumbers, electricians, roofers, professionals in the business who are able to come to the property and help the buyer understand what's going on with the property. Buyer's agents who are not experienced and do not help their buyers this way are going to have problems going forward, most likely, because if you can't articulate your value, then you're not going to be able to get a buyer to sign a buyer-broker agreement. So it's going to weed out some folks who are maybe less than professional. However, that isn't me, that isn't us, and I don't really expect a whole lot is going to change because of this settlement for us. I believe that we have always offered phenomenal service to buyers and sellers. I think our online reviews over the past 20 years bear that statement out. And I think anybody you talk to will tell you that we bring value to the table. So that's what's going on, and I hope that helps clear things up. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. This isn't something that I feel like I need to hide from. It's something that I'm embracing because it gives me an opportunity to talk to folks and articulate what it is that I do and the value I bring to the table. So with that, I will say, see you later, and let us know if you have any questions.